Welcome back to Harbaugh. We like to be the smartest show on politics out there, so let's prove it right now. We're back. We're talking about the 2010 election coming up next year, about nothing else. Well, President Obama won't be on the ballot, but everybody else will be. His party needs his help to keep their big majorities in the House of Representatives, where they're big-time, 41-seat majority, and in the Senate, where they have 60 seats. Well, if you include Lieberman, which is a risky business right there. How tough is it going to be for the Democrats to hold on to Congress? What's the hope look like? NBC News analyst Charlie Cook's an editor and publisher of the great Cook Political Report, and Ron Brownstein's political director for Atlantic Media. Gentlemen, I want to take a look at this because this is Charlie's analysis, and you check them. Ron, here it is. Look at the makeup now of the United States House of Representatives. 258 Democrats, a hearty majority there, only 177 Republicans, and of those Democratic seats, Charlie, you say 40 are gettable, is one way to put it. They're competitive. Gettable by Republicans. You could see them winning in almost every one of those seats.
Currently competitive. And that doesn't count sort of the potentially competitive that's out there. Yeah, right now, Democrats have 218, the barest possible majority that's solidly or likely in their category. But that likely column has been getting smaller because we've seen this attrition through retirements or through guys, members that haven't had races in a long time, suddenly developing tough challenges. So we've just upped our numbers to, we had been saying last month 15 to 25 seats for Republicans. Now we're saying 20 to 30 seat likely gain for Republicans based on what we know now. That'll change a big.
What would be the result if you follow the worst case scenario, meaning next year the unemployment rate is still up around 10. Healthcare has not been sold. It may have been passed, but it's not been sold. People aren't thrilled with it. Barack Obama is about where he is right now. Could they lose as many as Bill Clinton lost in '94?
I don't know if the House. I don't know if they can lose 52. Could they lose 41? Yes. That's a
lose the House.
Yes, because 10% unemployment for one straight year going into an election, that's a political no man's land that we haven't seen since the Great
Depression. And really, it only has to hang up there through the spring to have its impact, right?
Right, but the thing is, it's not likely. It maybe gets to 9.9. But here's a statistic. The ISI Group, a very highly respected Wall Street economic consulting firm, they estimate that in the household employment survey, you would need 150,000 new jobs every month for 48 months to get unemployment down to 9. And 9's horrible. 150,000 net jobs a month for 48 months. So we're talking not through the midterm election. We're talking into the presidential election.
Key factor.
Yeah.
Well, that's
you buy this? The key factor is unemployment. It's hard to get down from 10.
Well, the question we don't know is traditionally unemployment has been the number that people look at. After we've lived through this enormous job loss, January, 700,000 jobs lost in a single month. Austin Goolsbee called it a recession in a month. Perhaps they will get some credit from just sheer job growth rather than reduction in the unemployment. If the job growth numbers turn positive, that may engender some optimism. Look, in terms of thinking about the House, one of the key numbers in all this to remember is that in the 12 years of Republican control, their high point was 235 seats. For Democrats to be at 258 is really to be in an overexposed position generated by the fact that Bush was so weak in the second half of his second term. Democrats have won a lot of seats that are going to be very hard to hold on to, including 49 that McCain carried. Many of them are these predominantly white seats in which there's very little diversity. Okay. But the question for Democrats really is, can they keep this from bad from going to catastrophic?
Okay, let's talk about ethnicity, because it has a big role in politics these days. Look at this from your report in the New National Journal that's out. In 1992, which is how many years ago? 16 years ago, just before Republicans took over the House in '94, there were 245 House districts where minorities were less than 20% of the population, and 109 districts where minorities were more than 30% of the population. Well, in other words, there was a certain number of districts which are pretty much lily white, and a certain number which were heavily minority without being majority minority. Well, today it's flipped. There's only 145 districts out there with less than 20% minorities, only about 145 which you call white districts. Right. And on the other hand, there's up to 205 districts now which have a heavy 30% minority population, which is largely in these cases Hispanic, not black.
Right.
The minority is Hispanic.
So, black and Asian.
So you have a huge number of districts in the country, a huge number that have a huge or very large minority of Hispanics. Right. And that's what's new.
This is the slow motion demographic change that is remaking America. Think about it.
So what's it do to the parties?
Well, it changes the dynamics significantly. First of all, almost half of all House seats today have at least 30% of the population is non-white. This is not just a phenomenon of Phoenix, Dallas, and Miami anymore. If you look at the maps in the story, it's spreading across the Sun Belt and up the east and west coast. It is a kind of levy for Democrats in this sense. Democrats now hold about 70% of the seats that are substantially diverse, at least 30% minority. Even in 1994, they only lost, at that point in 1994, they had 92 seats that were heavily diverse. They only lost 5 of them. Their losses were concentrated in the predominantly white seats. They lost a third of the predominantly white seats they held.
So even though the country's still majority white, and it will be for a while,
right,
it's very hard to find a district that's lily white.
Or fewer. Still 145.
Where there isn't a significant number of minority voters you have to think about.
Right.
And there's a lot more districts where your minority is Hispanic, and you got to look at it. This explains, just be political here for a second, why Sonia Sotomayor made perfect sense. A woman, a Latina, as Supreme Court justice, right?
Right.
And it really helps, and it also really helps the Democrats that they're relatively seen as pro-legal immigration, or even kinder to illegal immigration, right?
And why Karl Rove, George W. Bush, John McCain were so right when they were telling the Republican Party, don't do this immigrant bashing stuff. This is suicide for us. I mean, if we're going to get killed with African Americans, we can't get killed with Hispanic voters.
So if your vote among African Americans and your Republicans 90-10 against you, you can't afford to have 90-10 against you among Hispanics, right?
It's 2-1. It's 2-1 among Hispanics. Overall, Obama and the House Democrats in 2008, according to the exit polls, each of them won 80% of non-white votes. Look, there are still a lot of Democrats. There's still 69 Democrats in these predominantly white districts. In the last 2 cycles, they picked up 27 seats there, again, because of Bush's weakness. A lot of those people are going to be looking for a new line of work after 2010. The challenge for Democrats, again, is to hold it to those kind of places.
The flip side is that white older people vote heavily. They do it as duty. They do it as habit. They've grown up that way. They're good voters, if you will. In the near term, next year, not 3 years from now, Charlie, next year, it still looks very good for Republicans for that reason, right? Older white people vote.
And they used to vote Democratic, and they're not voting Democratic anymore.
The white people of a certain age have become Republicans.
Well, this change thing of Democrats 06-08, that was threatening change.
Yeah, look, one last number. On average, in presidential elections since 1992, seniors have been 15% of the vote. In the off year, that goes all the way up to 19%. That is a big change.
You know what scares me?
It is a short-term fact.
You almost don't have to vote when you show up at the voting booth now. Just show up and they can tell you you're going to vote.
They tell you how you're going to vote.
Ethnicity. Anyway, thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Ron Brownstein.